Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium and with me, as always, our supercars expert, Adam Lemerise. Please feel free to comment in the chat room below and ask any questions. And before we start the show, we want to acknowledge the passing of legendary motorsports journalist Robin Miller. At the end of last month, Robin Miller wrote a column on Racer.com saying his cancer and leukemia had got to a point of no return, and he was just simply enjoying life. We all saw the images of Robin Miller just a couple of weeks ago, hanging out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader weekend, enjoying what would end up being his final trip to the Speedway. We'll have more on the loss of a giant in motorsports journalism later on in the program. Getting to tonight's agenda, we'll discuss the big news coming out of Le Mans. Triple A teasing a big supercars announcement next week, a costly crash from last week's ARCA race at Michigan, and a special tribute for the special man I just mentioned. And we'll kick off things tonight with a big announcement made yesterday by Cadillac. One of sports car racing's worst kept secrets is finally out of the bag. Cadillac officially confirmed they'll enter the LMDh ranks beginning in 2023. And here's a picture right here. Courtesy of Cadillac, they're the fifth manufacturer to announce an LMDh program, joining Acura, Audi, BMW, and Porsche. The two teams currently fielding their factory Cadillac DPI programs in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Action Express Racing and Chip Ganassi Racing will continue their relationship with General Motors into the LMDh era. Cadillac will also stick with the Dallara chassis. Besides having a presence in IMSA, Cadillac will also compete in the FIA World Endurance Championship with LMDh prototypes eligible to compete alongside the Le Mans hypercars in both IMSA and the WEC. With Action Express and Ganassi staying on for the Cadillac LMDh, do you think some of the Asian IndyCar talent could potentially be candidates for that seat?
Oh, sure. As we all know, Chip Ganassi Racing has some well talent in the IndyCar right now. You take a look at you, you take a look at Scott Dixon, who is a candidate to win the IndyCar series. To me, I think it'd be kind of cool if someone like Scott Dixon or someone else. To me, I think it'd be really cool to see the IndyCar drivers for Chip Ganassi when Cadillac comes in to when Cadillac comes in to the LMDh category in 2023 to have their IndyCar drivers do the 24 hours of Daytona, the 12 hours of Sebring, and maybe find a way to compete at Le Mans. I think it'd be really cool to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this how this new team develop when it comes on board in 2023. As a sports car fan, it's going to be really huge for the sport.
That's absolutely right, Adam. I think it's definitely going to be a huge thing for the sport having Cadillac go to Le Mans and race all these tracks, the 24 hours of Le Mans, the 24 hours of Daytona, and the 12 hours of Sebring like they already do, or even take on the 6 hours of Spa. And I think it's really great news for sports car racing in general. And to go back to the question about Asian IndyCar talent, as we see in sports car racing, sports cars can extend your racing careers well after your open wheel career is over. Look what it's done for drivers like Ryan Briscoe, and we've also seen Sage Karam race sports cars as well. And when we saw Sebastian Bourdais race full time in IMSA 1 year before, eventually coming back to IndyCars, and Sebastian Bourdais is actually one of those drivers I think could potentially have a future in LMDh or LMH down the road when his IndyCar career is over. And he's even said in interviews that once his open wheel racing career is over, he sees himself finishing off his racing career in sports car racing. So I definitely think Sebastian Bourdais certainly has to be in the conversation for one of those factory seats in a new era prototype racing. We mentioned Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon is still driving at an incredibly high level in the NTT IndyCar series. He's certainly one of the all-time great IndyCar drivers in history. And with him performing at the current level that he's at, I don't see him stopping IndyCar racing anytime soon. And I'm wondering what's going to happen with Scott Dixon's career. Are we going to see him race many more years in the IndyCar series as long as he's competitive? Or are we going to see the six-time champion going for his seventh, bow out of IndyCar, and finish up his racing career in sports cars? I certainly think that's something we have to watch for. And Ryan Hunter as well. He's basically all but confirmed that he's not returning to Andretti for next season at number 28 Honda. He could be looking at options as well in sports car racing, or we could see him stay in IndyCar. Maybe it'll be full time. Maybe we'll see him race Indy only, something like that. But I certainly think if there's some agent IndyCar drivers out there who want to keep on racing past IndyCar, a full time factory effort in one of those LMDh or LMH prototypes is certainly very attractive. And while GM might be smiling about Cadillac being able to compete for the overall wins at places I just mentioned, Daytona, Sebring, Spa, Le Mans, there has to be some disappointment about their factory Corvette racing program. We already know IMSA is ending the GTLM class at the end of the year because of increased costs. That led to lack of participation, and GTLM has just simply run its course. Corvette is planning to race in IMSA's new GTD Pro category next year, which allows all pro driver lineups based on GT3 cars. GTD Pro and GTD regulations will be similar, with the only difference being pro drivers in the Pro class and Pro Am drivers in the regular GTD class. The Corvette C8R is built to GTE regulations, so it is not a GT3 car. To be eligible for IMSA next year, Corvette is expected to build a modified C8R to fit the GTD Pro regulations so they can keep racing stateside. And starting in 2024, GTE cars will become obsolete. In the World Endurance Championship, as predicted by GRIDnet, GT3 cars will replace GTE. However, the WEC's new GT class could prohibit factory teams with all pro driver lineups with a more focus on Pro-Am, according to an article from Sports Car 365. And this is not set in stone yet, but it's certainly a possibility that the longtime Corvette racing team might get left out. With a focus on factory racing and no C8R GT3 spec car coming for the time being, the potential of Corvette's philosophy disappearing from Le Mans will certainly be a devastating blow. Pierre Filon, the ACO president, told Sportscar 365 in 2024, Corvette can continue racing at Le Mans, but with amateur drivers and privateer teams, but noted the details surrounding the new GT class are in the early stages. Adam, if the World Endurance Championship's new GT3 based category bans factory teams and all pro driver lineups, could we potentially see Corvette just focus on IMSA with the sister brand Cadillac going for the overall win?
I believe it. I believe so. You know, Corvette has had a really long success in IMSA going back to the early 2000s. We can remember when the late Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Dale Earnhardt Jr. were in a Chevrolet Corvette at the 24 Hours of Daytona. I believe Corvette will stay. I believe Corvette will stay stateside and compete in IMSA. While Cadillac goes out and overall competes in the WEC and in the 24 Hours of Le Mans and also the 6 hours of Spa down the line.
Yes, when I first heard this news from the Le Mans press conference, I was really shocked that the World Endurance Championship was planning to potentially go down this route. I guess it makes sense since we're expected to have a crazy number of manufacturers going for the overall win in LMH and LMDh, so you'll have all of your factory back entries up front. So I guess that decision makes sense because we're gonna have the factory class at the top, and then potentially, we'll definitely have a new LMP2 era coming up soon. I believe it's in 2024, and then have a GT class, and we don't know if it's going to be just one GT class or two yet. It's still up in the air, but I think it would be really crazy if they ban the factory teams and the all pro driver lineups, because that's what Corvette racing is, and we haven't really seen them do anything with privateers outside of a GTM Corvette that used to race at Le Mans in the last couple of years, well, in the last decade or so, library competition. And that's about the only privateer effort that I've really seen from the Corvette racing factory team. And I guess if they want to race at Le Mans in the future, if the ACO WC move forward with this, they're either going to have to just stick with their rules or maybe pull out. And with that said, do you really, like, in your opinion, Adam, do you see Corvette supporting privateers, or could this potentially be the beginning of the end for the legendary Corvette racing team?
I believe it's the beginning of the end. I believe right now it's the beginning of the end for Corvette racing. It has so much success in sports car racing. you know, they've won just about in. They've just won about everywhere. The 24 Hours of Daytona, the 12 Hours of Sebring, the 24, and of course the 24 Hours of Le Mans. If Corvette, Corvette Racing is a team that everybody knows in sports car racing. You take a look at their two car operations that just compete at Le Mans. All those drivers are well known across the sports car world. If Corvette Racing, doesn't compete at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, I think it'll be a very sad story, and I hope it. To me, I hope it doesn't happen, but I believe it will down the line.
Yes, it would be super unfortunate if we lose the Corvette racing team, because ever since I started following sports car racing as a boy, I've always looked at Corvette racing when it was time for Le Mans. Every single year when it was time for the 24 Hours of Le Mans, when you're over here as an American, you're like, I'm going to be following Corvette racing's progress. If nothing else, if you're not going to be following the race as a whole, you want to know where Corvette racing is in the running order and if they're going to be in contention for the win. So yes, GM is still going to have a presence at Le Mans in the future with the Cadillac LMDh program. But Corvette racing, it really seems like it's up in the air at this point, and we're just gonna have to see what the World Endurance Championship's final call is on the future of GT racing at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And looking at some other news from Le Mans to digest, the 2022 World Endurance Championship schedule was revealed. And taking a look at the schedule right here, you can see the preseason test at Sebring, the official prolong in mid March, and then right after that, week later, the 1,000 miles of Sebring, hoping the pandemic will be in a much better place by then so we can actually see the World Endurance Championship come back to the United States, and we can see the LMH cars race for the full time with Toyota, Glickenhaus, and also going to have Peugeot joining the championship next year as well. And then after Sebring in May, have the Total Energy 6 Hours of Spa, then the 24 Hours of Le Mans back to its traditional date in June. Hopefully, like I said, with the pandemic, hopefully we're in a better place so we can have Le Mans back in June once again, where it belongs, in my humble opinion. And July got the 6 Hours of Monza, then a return to Fuji on September 11th. Unfortunately, that round got canceled last year, so they're doing a doubleheader in Bahrain to make up for it. I'm sure the Japanese motorsport fans really miss seeing the multiple series race over there. And then after the 6 Hours of Fuji in September, November 12th, the 6 Hours of Bahrain to close out the 2022 FIA World Endurance Championship season. And in 2022, the World Endurance Championship will use 100% renewable energy developed by Total Energies, called Excellium Racing 100. IMSA and the ACO will continue to work together in the best interest of sports car racing globally, renewing their agreement for the next 10 years, so a decade more of commitment between the two sanctioning bodies. The category for hydrogen-powered prototypes have been pushed back to debut in 2025, and according to ACO President Pierre Fillon, hydrogen prototypes could potentially challenge the LMH and LMDh cars for the overall win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He used the example of Audi challenging the regular gasoline prototypes, beating them later on with diesel fuel. And I think that's a really interesting comparison. I think it would be really wild to see hydrogen cars joining the fight for the overall win, and that's a lot of news right there, Adam. So based on the other announcement here, which one do you find the most interesting to you?
Me, the hydrogen powered cars going up against LMH and LMDh. I can remember. I can remember when Audi was really dominant at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and when they went to diesel power, they were still dominant. So when these hydrogen cars come out and race against the LMH and LMDh cars, it's gonna. I believe fans will go crazy. I believe they will love it. And looking at the FIA World Endurance Championship calendar, I like it. It's gonna. I hope the pandemic is back at at lower ground, so we can see the LMH and LMDh cars compete at Sebring. And I feel so sorry for all the Japanese motorsports fans that aren't able to have, this year they're not having the Formula One Japanese Grand Prix, sports car racing, but they do have the Super GT series over there, so these fans can get some motorsports action from Japan. So I really like the FIA World Endurance Championship schedule for 2022, and hopefully it stays like that so we don't have to lose any races or gain any races.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think the most spectacular thing to me is that these hydrogen cars could be competing for the overall win too. Yeah, we're already going to have a lot of manufacturers, as it's looking like, could potentially have even more. It looks like we're going to have around maybe 9, 10 right now, and it's crazy that we could have like maybe up to 15 before this is all said and done. Then we're going to add the hydrogen powered prototypes as well. I'm like, wow, we're really moving forward with technology. And there's one thing about the 24 Hours of Le Mans, they're always the first to showcase some brand new racing technology for the very first time. And I think that the potential of these hydrogen prototypes could be enormous. And also we could look at this as well in the vehicle production line as we become more eco-friendly, as they say. Now moving on to some news coming out of supercars. In a teaser video by Triple A's Red Bull Ampol racing team, we'll learn who Jamie Whincup's replacement in the full-time lineup alongside Shane Van Gisbergen will be next Tuesday, August 31st. So just giving you guys a hint, that will probably be one of our top stories on our Supercars expert, Adam Lemerise. Will be here to give you an excellent take of what's ahead. And according to Simon Chapman from SpeedCafe.com, there are 3 leading candidates for that second Triple Eight seat. Earl Bamber, the Porsche factory driver, Brody Kostecki, the Supercars regular, and then the Super 2 young gun, Brock Fane. Adam, our Supercars expert, is here. He's going to provide you some excellent insight on these 3 drivers. So, Adam, what can you tell us about these 3 drivers believed to be the leading candidates, or could it be someone else who hasn't been mentioned? And also another question, in your opinion, who is the best fit alongside SVG?
Thank you, Kobe. Earl Bamber, like you said, is a factory Porsche driver competing in the GTLM series in the WeatherTech Sports Car Series. He does have some supercars knowledge. He has competed at Bathurst before, but I believe Earl Bamber will stay with Porsche. Brody Kostecki is a regular supercars driver, and he is competing in the Cash Converter Supercars E-Series. In fact, they ran their first race this morning, and which was won by Richie Stanaway. Brody Kostecki finished 8th in that race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was a wild and crazy race. But to me, and a lot of other my friends that live in Australia, the contender who we all think is going to take Jamie Whincup's spot is Brock Fane. Brock is a Red Bull developmental driver in the Dunlop Super 2 series, which is basically right behind the Supercar series. Brock this year is leading the points with 828. He has 4 wins from 6 races. In the races that he didn't win, the second race at Bathurst, he finished 8th, and in the WD-40 Super Sprint at Townsville, race 2, he finished 2nd behind Zach Best. So overall, I believe that Brock Fane will take over in the supercars alongside SVG. And next Wednesday, we will discuss who takes over. We will discuss who takes over the seat as alongside SVG at Red Bull. So be sure to watch.
Thank you for that insight, Adam. And next week, we'll see if you're right about Brock Feeney becoming Shane Van Gisbergen's new teammate. And in recent years, veteran drivers in the NASCAR garage have sounded off over the lack of respect we see with young, upcoming drivers, especially being very critical of those well-funded drivers who did not have to work as hard as those who displayed that grit and grind mentality. I know it sounds like the Memphis Grizzlies there to make it to the highest level of stock car racing. We saw the same conversation arise after last week's crash during the ARCA race at Michigan. At the start of the race, Drew Dollar made contact with Thad Moffitt, which put the grandson of Richard Petty into the wall. Later in the race, Moffitt got payback, spinning Dollar, who got hit head on by Tim Richmond, who drives for a small, underfunded team. Payback is common in stock car racing, something we see a lot, especially on the short tracks, but not on a high speed 2 mile oval like Michigan. In your opinion, did Thad Moffitt do the right thing getting payback, or should ARCA do something about it to send a strong message to the competitors?
To me, I don't think Thad Moffitt should have done that. I feel so sorry for Tim Richmond. Like you said, Kobe, it's an underfunded team. I believe Tim Richmond had some injuries from that accident, so I don't to have Thad Moffitt get payback on Drew Dollar in the ARCA series was uncalled for. Hopefully, Tim Richmond will recover from his injuries and race again in the ARCA series later on this year and hopefully next year.
If anything, I think ARCA really needs to sit down with some of the young drivers, especially Thad Moffitt and Drew Dollar, to make sure this is not going to be a common thing moving forward. And I think if this had occurred at a short track, I don't think it would have been a major issue at all because speeds are so much lower and it's safer. But at a high speed track like Michigan, I don't think this is something that should have been done at all. And like you said, I think it was totally uncalled for. I don't know if ARCA has a system where they can find drivers for this, or even a one race suspension or something like that. That might be a little too extreme. I don't know, but maybe something to consider since Tim Richmond did suffer injuries in this crash that's really going to hurt his underfunded team. But overall, I don't think that Moffitt did the right thing by getting payback at Michigan. But if he wanted to get payback at a short track, lower speeds, go for it because we see rivalries like this all the time. We see it in the short tracks, but not on high speed 2 mile ovals like Michigan, as I just said. And while Moffitt and Dollar walked away from the crash unharmed, Tim Richmond did not. And here's a photo from Richmond Club Motorsports taken by owner driver Alex Club showing the heavy front end damage to Tim Richmond's number 27. Tim did get out of the car under his own power and he actually checked on Drew Dollar to make sure he was all right. Later, Richmond announced on social media that he had suffered a small cut to his hand, also a broken tibia, and a fractured ankle, and said there's a possibility that this crash ended his 2021 season behind the wheel. And Alex Club described the crash as a really dumb way to lose a race car, adding if you're going to wreck someone, as I've just said, Club said to do it on a short track, not a super speedway, calling it a big hit for their small team. Adam, you understand the difference in equipment in ARCA competition? It's enormous. How frustrating is this for Richmond Club Motorsports to lose this car, and was Tim Richmond's injury preventable?
Like we just said, Richmond Club Motorsports is an underfunded team. I know it's going to hurt them a lot. Um, I don't know if they have any other cars, they can put out there this year, but it's a really sad situation. I'm hoping the best for Richmond Club Motorsports that they can at least find a way to compete at some ARC races this year and hopefully next year. And Tim Richmond's injuries, I hope the best for him. Um, and overall, I hope that Richmond Club Motorsports finds a way to come back. I know it's going to be really hard for them, but hopefully it will happen. And I believe, and I just feel so sorry for Richmond Club Motorsports after what happened in Michigan. Very sad story for them, and I hope the best for the team.
Yeah, we're certainly going to be wishing the best for the team. And when you think about ARCA teams like Joe Gibbs Racing, Venturini Motorsports, David Gilliland Racing, they crash a car, that's fine because they'll have another one. A small team like Richmond Club Motorsports, you wreck a car, and in certain circumstances, that might be the only ARCA car you have. And if you crash that car, you might miss multiple races. You might be lucky only miss one, or that might put you out for the rest of the season. Like Adam said, we don't know what the situation is right now at Richmond Club Motorsport, but it just shows you drive for one of the bigger ARCA teams, you wreck a car, it's no big deal. They're gonna have one to go for you next week. These smaller teams, you might have to pull 24-hour shifts all week long just to make it to the next race weekend. So that just shows you how critical this accident was for this race team, and it's super unfortunate that this happened because I believe that this was 110% preventable. And nowadays, we see a lot of young drivers coming up through the ranks with the same level of respect we used to see in the past. Instead of racing cleanly or moving someone out of the way, we see drivers get completely wrecked. Or like we saw at Michigan, getting cleaned out at a super speedway, not a short track where retaliation would be much safer. And in my opinion, if Tim Richmond got swept up at a track like the Milwaukee Mile, there's a high likelihood he wouldn't suffer the same injuries at a short track. And just a couple of weeks ago at the IMS road course, Daniel Suarez sent out a critical tweet after the chaotic cup race that day. Suarez said it was embarrassing, the lack of respect on the track, comparing it to dumb kids driving bumper cars after a crazy Knoxville truck race last month. Lack of respect was also the common thing being said by the competitors after the race, after many, many cautions. Adam, you've been around for different eras of stock car racing. In your opinion, how is the level of respect changed in your eyes? How can the culture be changed in stock car racing? Or is it just at the point where it's just irreversible?
No, like I said, Kobe, I've been watching stock car racing for a long time. I've been watching since I was a real little baby, and it's changed a lot, a whole lot. With the lack of respect out there, if uh, and we have a comment from Humperdinck, and he says you shouldn't retaliate at a high speed level, but there have been tons of high profile drivers who haven't done it. So that's a bad example for younger drivers. I have to completely agree with you, Humperdinck, on your comment. To me, a short track is a lot better for retaliation than a super speedway. Because you take some place like Michigan, Daytona, Talladega, those are very high speeds. And we've seen we've seen 200-mile-an-hour wrecks that can cause injuries. A short track is a good way for me. If you want to get payback at somebody, you do it at a short track. It's a lot, it's easier, so, it has changed in my opinion. But to me, if you want retaliation, do it at a short track rather than a super speedway.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And we have another comment from Hunter D here saying Carl Edwards, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Tony Stewart, and Danica Patrick come to mind, but you could think more in time. And really appreciate you for sharing your comments. Hunter D, as a reminder to all of our viewers in the chat room, please be sure to share your thoughts down below of anything we've talked about tonight. And with that said, next here's Matt White with a Grid War Motorsport League update.
Hi everyone, Matt White here from the Grid World Motorsport League. It's time for another Grid World Motorsport League update. Missed you last week on holiday, so here we are with week number 26. Not too many changes over the last couple of weeks, but we do have a brand new entry into the top 10 this week. Toprak Razgatlioglu from World Superbikes joins the top 10. He's been threatening to do this for some time. He's been sitting in 11th for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and finally with his tremendous weekend that he had in Spain at Navarra this weekend, he joins Jonathan Ray, his championship rival in World Superbike, in the top 10. Ray has slipped to 6th. Jason O'Halloran has jumped back up to 3rd after a good weekend for him in BSB at Cadwell Park this weekend on the mountain circuit there. The traditional August round. Niccolo Marini continues to lead. He did not race at Le Mans this weekend as he's an LMP3 driver, but we've had lots of changes in the top 100 of guys that did race at Le Mans this weekend, so plenty of shuffling going on just outside the top 10 of the now almost 800 person strong list of people that have now driven and scored some sort of point in the Grid World Motorsport League over the past 26 weeks. We're heading into the final stretch. It's a big weekend coming up with the last race of the playoff, of the regular season, should I say, for NASCAR at Daytona on Saturday night. MotoGP is back in the UK at Silverstone. Looking forward to that, and the big weekend at Spa with Formula 1, Formula 2 and W Series, and of course with two W Series competitors in the top 10, Alex Powell and Jamie Chadwick. Expect plenty of shuffling with those two, Hamilton and Verstappen of course, all in the top 8 going into the weekend. So we could have a very different look to the Grid World Motorsport League for week 27. We'll bring you that update next week.
And we do have one race before a Grid Live pre-race on Saturday, and that's the W Series at Spa. And with that said, here's Adam with everybody's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Thanks, Kobe. Like you said, it's time for Pick a Winner. And as we take a look at the updated graphics, we see Joe is at 23. I'm right behind 22. Kobe is in third with 21. Matt White is in fourth, and Ben Schneider is fifth. And before I get started with Pick a Winner, I have some F1 history for you guys. 30 years ago today, Michael Schumacher started his first Formula One race at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. Pretty cool. Now it's time. Our colleague Joe Samigo has picked Alice Powell to win the W Series race at Spa. Kobe, I'm going to start with you. Who takes the checkered flag at Spa-Francorchamps in the W Series on Saturday morning?
I'm actually going to go with a driver who I thought would be a little bit more competitive this season. I really think she's going to really get her 2021 W Series season going at Spa-Francorchamps, and I think Boskowitzer is going to get it done.
I thought you would go another way, but for me, I'm going to go with Jamie Chadwick. I believe it's her and Alice Powell overall for the W Series championship. So I'm going with Jamie Chadwick as my pick winner for the W Series at Spa.
Yes, and we want to remind all of our viewers out there, please tell us in the chat room below, who do you think is going to win the W Series race at Spa? I also want to remind everyone, please be sure to like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And a big thank you to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, and D Show for supporting us. We really appreciate everything you guys have done for Grid Network. Also, check out Pobbles. Please consider spoiling your furry friend. They have dog leashes, clothing, and accessories for dogs of all sizes. 10% of your purchase goes towards helping homeless, sick, and rescued dogs. Please visit public.com, the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code gives you $5 to invest right away. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. The Women Racing to Win aired earlier today, a day sooner than usual, because we had a special episode with Sarah Bovey, who competed in the 24 Hours of Le Mans last weekend, driving for the Iron Dames. The number 85 Ferrari 488 GTE finished 9th in the GTE AM class and 36th overall. Bovey's co-drivers were Rahel Fry and Michelle Gotting. Be sure to click on the link in the video description below to check out Sarah Bovey's interview with Daniel Zeri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. And then on Saturday, we're back on the air for Grid Live pre-race. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up after the Formula One Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. And before we go off the air, we want to honor the late Robin Miller. Miller passed away earlier today in Indianapolis at 71 years old. And here's a statement from Robin's sister that she posted on Facebook. With that said, Adam.
Thanks, Kobe. It is with a heavy heart that I share my brother, the one and only Robin Miller, has taken his last lap. He was the best brother, uncle, friend, confidant, and journalist. His heart was big. His generosity was immeasurable. His personality and quick wit was like no other. Robin's stories were the best you've ever heard. Some we can't repeat, but, but you can imagine it all. If you knew him, you experienced all of this. So much laughter and great time shared. Thank you for everyone's prayers and support. Your kindness and love has been overwhelming. Much love, Diane.
Robin Miller enjoyed a long, successful career in motorsports journalism at the Indianapolis Star, ESPN, Speed Channel, Racer Magazine, and NBC Sports. Anybody who knew anything about Robin Miller knew he wasn't that he wasn't afraid to speak his mind bluntly about any given subject. While some journalists would avoid a controversial topic, Robin Miller took it head on with full steam ahead. So many tributes pouring out today across the motorsports world, from IndyCar to NASCAR. And here's a statement from the captain, Roger Penske, saying racing has lost one of his most well-respected journalists and most beloved personalities. Robin Miller achieved his dream as his lifelong passion for motorsports led him on a path to becoming the premier reporter in open wheel racing. For more than 50 years, Robin covered the sport he loved with a fierce drive, a great sense of humor, and uncompromising honesty. I know that Robin was truly touched by the support he received across the motorsports community over these last few months as he battled his illness, as many of Robin's friends honored him and his legacy earlier this month when he was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame during Brickyard Weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was a fitting tribute to his life's works at the place that meant the world to him. And while some of Robin Miller's hot takes over the years have rubbed some people the wrong way, the overwhelming majority respect him for everything he gave to the sport and the racing community. Robin was a reporter on the old motorsports talk show RPM Tonight, the show we honor here on Grit Tonight. Adam, is there anything you wanted to share with Robin Miller before we go off the air tonight?
Yeah, Robin Miller was one of the most liked journalists in all of motorsports. For those of you who don't know, he did drive in USAC sprints and midgets back in the day, which encouraged him to become a journalist. He was one of the he was well known. I can remember his days at the old Wind Tunnel show with Dave Despain when he came on the air, and he was just well loved. Just a couple weeks ago, we lost Bob Jenkins, and now Robin Miller. Two of the greatest people in motorsports have died within the last couple of weeks. It's very sad to see, but when it's your time, it's your time. All of us here at GRIDnet are sending our thoughts and prayers to Robin Miller's family and friends across the motorsports industry.
Thank you for sharing that, Adam. And next, I'll read a statement on behalf of Grid Network for our CEO and founder, Joe Samniego. And Joe said, "We are saddened to learn about the passing of Robin Miller. Robin Miller's passion for IndyCar really shined in his race coverage. His straightforward reporting of controversial topics was pioneer to many when he was on RPM Tonight on ESPN. Miller and his colleague Marshall Pruitt at Racer Magazine are the go-to sources for everything relating to IndyCar coverage, and Robin leaves behind a legacy that will inspire more journalists ahead." And like we did for the late Bob Jenkins just a few weeks ago, we'll end tonight's show with a moment of silence. Please join us as we remember the great motorsports journalist who we'll all never forget, Robin Miller. We extend our deepest condolences to his loved ones during this difficult time, and may Robin Miller's memory be a blessing.